I think that we can start. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to this fourth webinar of the Water-Oriented Living Lab series dedicated to the climate-ready cities and regions in the framework of the activities of the Water for All Pillar D. The discussion of today comes in quite an important moment for Europe, because climate adaptation is moving, as we know, from being a long-term objective to becoming an operational needs for the cities, for the regions, for the utilities, and for all local authorities which are dealing with climate change with the impact on water. Across Europe, territories are increasing, really confronting with water scarcity, floods, stress, and growing uncertainty, which is also much more serious, which is linked to what will be climate change in the next years. And at the same time, Europe is also increasingly recognized that climate change and climate resilience and water resilience cannot be addressed through isolated projects or sectoral or approaches, but they require much more systemic, integrated, and territorial approaches. So this is also fully aligned with the vision of Water Smart Society Economy provided by Water Europe, which is also supporting the organization of this webinar, where water becomes really a strategic element for resilience, sustainability, and competitiveness across territories and sectors. Why we are speaking about water, why they can play, Water-Oriented Lab can play a real strategic role, because they are not only testing environments for innovation, they are territorial ecosystems that are able to connect the stakeholders, the local actors, and generate evidence and support governance change and create scaling and replication. So today we'll hear concrete experience from different water-oriented labs across Europe, discuss barriers and enabling conditions, opportunities, and reflect on how these approaches can contribute structurally to climate adaptation policy and governance frameworks. It's time to move to the first session and invite our speakers to introduce their experiences. Something that I really recommend the speaker is to keep their time, the given time for the presentation. So we start with the first session, which is about why climate adaptation needs water-oriented labs. And now we have the presentation of the water-oriented labs participating into this webinar. And we start with the first one, which is the Aguamai Living Lab. And would like me to give the floor to Rita Lourinho and Maria Joao Rosa for presenting this water-oriented living lab. Please, speakers, remember that for this session, each water-oriented living lab has 5 minutes time for the presentation. Thank you so much, and the floor is yours, Rita.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So let me share the presentation. I think it's okay. My name is Rita Lourinho. I work at Águas Atlântico, a wastewater utility in Portugal. So I will present the Aguamai Living Lab. So the Aguamai Living Lab starts in the scope of an European project, the Water Smart project, in 2020. It was a collaborative platform to test and scale innovative solutions and our focus on urban water management. And also in 2020, it was integrated into the European Atlas of WOLLs Living Labs in 2024. In 2025, it was transformed into Aguamai Living Lab, expand from city level to a regional ecosystem, broader the territorial scope and impact, and strengthen the role as a driver of a systematic transformation in the water sector. About the governance of Aguamai Living Lab, we have 3 founding members, Águas do Tejo Atlântico, Lisbon Municipality, and the Laboratory of National Civil Engineering. These 3 founding members are responsible for strategic direction and overall coordination of the Living Lab. and the governance model are based on the quadruple helix approach and in the structure of a co-creation framework. The vision of AguaMain Living Lab is to be a space of excellence for open innovation in the water sector, driving partnerships and sustainable solutions to transform society and the way we face the global challenges. About the mission is to promote open innovation in the water sector in a dynamic ecosystem of co-creation, experimentation, and demonstration, through collaboration, developing sustainable practice to create positive impact in communities. From the challenge to opportunities for innovation and disseminating knowledge, strengthening partnerships, and driving development. Related with the climate adaptation in AguaMain. So, climate adaptation needs practical ways to move forward the strategy to implementation. And the WOLLs create evidence by co-creating and testing water smart solutions in real local contexts in the territories. They bring public authorities, researchers, business, and communities into a shared learning space. WOLLs help translate pilot results into planning strategies, investment priorities, and policy actions. The key question is how to embed them in the city and regional adaptation planning. So why climate adaptation needs the water-oriented living labs? So WOLLs generate practical evidence on what climate adaptation works, where, and why. WOLLs inform decisions by testing adaptation options under real local conditions. WOLLs can strengthen policies uptake by linking the pilots to planning and regulations. Also, WOLLs enable scaling by proving which solutions can be replicated or transferred across other territories. Also can improve access to finance by reducing uncertainty for the adaptation investment. Can support institutionalization through a long-term governance and resilience strategies, and build shared ownership by engaging communities in adaptation pathways. And also, WOLLs can create transferable learning for climate adaptation across regions and sectors. The key challenge being overcome by the AguaMain Living Lab. The weak links to formal adaptation planning, like short-term pilots with limit policy uptakes, and clear pathways from testing to adoption, the fragmented governance across the sectors and levels, the insufficient long-term funding and institutional anchoring, limited evidence, metrics, and monitoring for decision makers, also weak stakeholders ownership and unveiled community engagement, and weak data sharing and cross-sector coordination. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Rita. Thanks a lot for your presentation. And now the time, is to pass to the second water-oriented level up pitch. It is Inge Gerne from Vito. The floor is yours, Inge. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea. I'll share my screen. Okay. Yeah, do you see it?
Yes, all good.
Okay, thank you. So I'm from engineer from Vito. Vito is an RTO in Flanders in Belgium, and I'm going to present the Water-Oriented Living Lab, the Water Climate Hub. So our mission is directly linked to the decoupling of the economic growth from the water availability. This is linked to Flanders being a water scarce region, even if it's in the center of Europe. We have a lot of industry facing significant water risk, large-scale chemical industry, textile industry, food industry. So which means we need solutions that require a multi-actor approach at multiple levels. Our Living Lab acts as an innovation accelerator, so it's really about making the transformation more fast. And we do this by building regional innovation ecosystems that really connect industry to technology solutions and vice versa. Our guide in this whole way of working or this approach is the Blue Deal in Flanders, which is a assignment, let's say a strategy put forward by the Flemish government in really making a long-term action plan and engagement towards increased water governance. So really moving beyond the sector-oriented policies to an integrated systemic solution approach. Our solutions patients, so where are we working on? We're working very strongly on the stakeholder involvement part, really on building the trust with all local stakeholders. And we do this by the different researchers from VITO and also facilitated by VITO Kennispunt Water activity, which is a specific assignment really directed towards increasing stakeholder involvement and creating aligned research and innovation agenda. We work on different technology platforms, so the real technology focus, also the more data digital monitoring focus, also water and economy, focusing on business models and economic evaluation, and also on the system thinking towards improved water governance. On the infrastructure part, we focus on mobile testing equipment and large-scale pilot hall, especially at our new premises at the Ossend location. Then how we address the climate adaptation challenges? Well, I put it in this kind of stepwise graph. And where you see, when you look at the different, how to go towards implementation, you need to look at the individual company level. You need to scale up and move to the business park, neighborhoods, and city level. Then you also need to look at how those economic activities are being placed, linked to the cities, region, the sites, and the river basin approach. And then also bringing that one step higher to the regional approach and also focus on transboundary regions. This way, the step goes from the individual company to the higher regional level, but it also needs to come down. So you need to be able to work in different ways, in different directions, which means that you need to bring together expertise from people that know how to work directly with individual companies, understand their concerns. You need to work together with people that work on the regional governance. You need to work on the people that work on the river basin governance, and also on the transboundary complex whole policy relation behind that. So this connectivity is really the way of working that you bring together in this Living Lab approach. I present two concrete examples to make it a bit more tangible. One example is the way of working for the climate adaptive business parks. This fits into regional strategies to move towards climate adaptation. And this is an example where we work together. This is an example of the business park in Tielt, which is in West Flanders region, where we work together with Aquafin and utility company, the Water Group, and a lot of regional stakeholders. So the local companies, the business park owner, the community level, all those bring them together to really go for the co-design and implementation of industrial reuse and buffering solutions. So it's really about creating, in this case, focus on circular rain. How can that safeguard the business park water resilience? Another example directly related to the climate adaptation is about the buffering solutions. So looking at strategic water buffers. So it's about smart buffering and water treatment to secure those regional water supply, both for irrigation and for drinking water purposes. In this case, we work on different monitoring networks, also to enable the data-driven decision, and then for the implementation of really large-scale measure. What you see on the left-hand side, those pictures, are from the implementation case related to the sand quarries in the province of Antwerp. This is related to the company Sibelco. You see the large lake, that is an artificial lake, which is linked to sand mining for several years. And then we looked at those different lakes to use them as a kind of water battery to store water. So really highering the water level and also looking at the direct possible water use for drinking water production. So reducing the stress on the deep groundwater scarcity. And you see an example in the picture. So it's not just about a research organization and one company, it's a whole collaboration. You see a picture of the local mayor, you see a picture of the governor of Antwerp, you see a picture of a representative of the Sibelco company, and a picture of our CEO Vito as one example on creating the local dynamics. And this is a kind of tilting weir that was installed really to hiring the water level there. So bringing that together, there's the animation. There was a thank you here. So both for the context for the Water Climate Hub, you can always contact me for the broader Living Lab and Innovation ecosystem. And as a direct contact for our Ascent new test hall and pilot infrastructure, you can contact my colleague, Karen. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Inge. Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to Vittoria Giannini for the presentation of the WIRI Water Oriented Living Lab. And I see that there's a raised hand. I kindly ask you to put your question in the chat. We will have a moment of the Q&A after the panel discussion. Vittoria, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Now it should be in
Presentation mode.
complete mode. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Vittoria Giannini, and I'm an associate professor in agronomy and field crop at University of Padua. Today, I'm bringing you to a different environment from the ones already explored by my colleagues in the webinar, since we are going basically to the farms and the agricultural areas. So I'm going to present you our WIRI Living Lab, first of all, starting from the term WIRI. WIRI stands for Wise Irrigation. So we are a group of academic farmers and stakeholders that are really seeking to implement water irrigation efficiency in agriculture through a climate smart solution. We are very proud of our methodology implemented in WIRI, since we are using a participatory on-field methodology, namely on-farm experimentation, which is an innovation process that brings together agricultural stakeholders and all the people like researchers, like other stakeholder interest in the subject of water, which are basically starting from a real problem, which is in many cases started and proposed by farmers, and that together in a real world farm dimension start a process of co-development that helps arriving to a solution. So we are really proud of this methodology that we have been implementing with our farmers, because we consider that this is the only way to foster open innovation and making possible that the innovation that we are generally used to develop in our research university could be really absorbed by real world. Just to present you some of our experience that have been implemented in WIRI Living Lab from 2016, which are much more related with the topic of today. The first is eRadvice, which is an application for smartphone and tablets that we have co-developed with farmers and for sure with engineers able to do this application. And the purpose is the optimization of irrigation water used for summer crops, particularly maize and soybean. As you can see from this screenshot of the application, each farmer could identify on the map his or her farm, and also can add all the information related to the single field, to the soil characteristic, but also to the pedoclimatic condition. These apps are able to talk with the nearest weather station, so it is able to basically update data related to the most important weather condition. Thus, it is able to provide a clear message to the farmer. When you have a clear green screen, you basically don't need to irrigate. When you have an orange or a red message, then the urgency of irrigating is increased. But in particular, thanks to an optimization of the application with the coefficient, the crop coefficient of the specific crops, we are able also to provide a very clear information to the farmer about the quantity of water that it needs to use for each irrigation event. Another important activity of co-developed innovation that we have built in WIRI is related on testing new varieties, drought-tolerant varieties of maize. We are in northern eastern Italy, and maize is a very important crop, but because of climate change and very prolonged drought during summer, we have been experiencing a very important yield loss. So we have started studying with the farmers the opportunity of testing new varieties which are drought tolerant, and we have started to test these varieties in combination with different irrigation system, but also with the possibility of managing irrigation directly using data retrieved from remote sensing, for example, from Sentinel. So we have tested this innovation in Polesine, so an area in the south of Veneto region, and we have seen how still important the presence of farmer in the field, because sometimes these data coming from platform are not really able to provide a really precise estimation of water balance. And we have also worked a lot with our farmers to really improve their competencies to estimate the water balance. So these are just some ideas of all the activities that we have developed in WIRI. There are many others which are strictly related to our focus on water use, which has a very strong linkage with the climate adaptation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vittoria, for the presentation. Our next speaker is George Sakinis, who will present the Attica Water Lab. So, George, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, but not the one with the presentation.
Okay, sorry. Now it's better?
No, we can see your screen, but not the one with the presentation.
Oh no, sorry about this.
No worries. Otherwise, you can send me your presentation. I can do the screen sharing for you, if you prefer.
Yes,
Do you mind if you give somebody else the floor so that I can fix how to make this? I don't
You
know.
can send me your presentation and I can share it for you.
I will, okay. I did it. So I have sent it. I don't know if you see it.
Not yet.
Alice, did you receive it?
Yes, I have it.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't know why I can't open it. Thank you. Okay. Hello, I'm George Sachinis. I'm the Director of Strategy and Innovation from Athens, Greece, from the EIDAP utility. It's the water and sewerage services company of the whole of Attica region. I will present you the Attica Water Lab, which is really a water lab that accompanies the creation of a master plan for water reuse in the Attica region. Next, please. What we realized is that water reuse in Athens, in Attica, it's an issue that is larger than what a utility should handle in terms of designing it. The water reuse system its efficiency and its sustainability is dependent on so many stakeholders that you cannot do it alone as a water utility. So we decided that we will go through a participatory model for designing and implementing this water reuse system in Attica. For this reason, we created the Attica Water Lab, which has a very specific output, which is the design of the water reuse system in Attica. We also created the second axis, which is the water conservation axis. It's an axis of sharing information and good practices regarding water conservation after the water meter. So from the side of the consumer. Next. Here are the partners of the Attica Water Lab. They are all the beneficiaries of potential water reuse system in Attica. They are also all the decision makers related to the water reuse Attica in Greece. They range from people from the government, from agencies of the government to NGOs, universities, and of course, networks of consumers. Next, please. The milestones, as I said, are defined by the task to create, in a participatory way, a robust master plan for water reuse in Attica. For this reason, we have created 7 working groups that are subgroups of this entire water living lab, and they are, as we speak, working together towards the completion of this elements coming from this master plan. Next, please. So a few things that are very important to be solved in a participatory way, like the excellent model of Attica, of water-oriented living labs provides. First, the exchange of good practices to reduce water consumption. You cannot speak of water use before you make sure that everybody knows how to consume less. Second, the identification of non-potable water needs of major consumers. It is not trivial to identify what are the exact water needs for non-potable uses. And there, you cannot sit back and relax by just sending questionnaires. You need to be in direct contact with all stakeholders who will consume or who will probably consume this water and make them part of the vision. One key thing about water reuse is that, at least in the water reuse in a dense urban environment like Attica, is that you need to see it not only as a way to satisfy your non-potable needs now, but you need to see water reuse with a vision of utilizing more water than what you use today to satisfy other needs, like making a greener city, making a city that has less temperature. So we are not speaking only about like, let's say, sustainable water management here. We are talking about a vision to improve city life, to improve how the city is developed and how the city is lived. This is what a water reuse master plan should focus on. And this is exactly why you need a participatory model like a water-oriented living lab, including all related stakeholders. Also, regulatory changes. We're not there yet in Europe. We're not there yet in Greece. And we need regulatory changes, especially when it comes to innovation, like innovative local water reuse stations, because in Greece, we cannot solely rely on the large wastewater treatment plants. We need to plant small local water reuse stations in the city. Of course, the investigation of the economics of water reuse, needless to say, this is an unsolved problem, and you do need a participatory process in order to figure out how to do it. Thank you. Next. The working groups, these are some examples of the working groups. We are creating a digital platform of technologies and best practices for water saving. We would be very happy to collaborate in this with the marketplace that Water Europe has, raising awareness among the school community, decentralized water recovery in the urban environment. What does that mean in terms of regulatory changes, as we discussed? Environmental benefits of reuse. How can you reduce the cost of water reuse by understanding that the environment is a client, so somebody needs to pay and somebody needs to subsidize water reuse that is beyond the user, because you make good for the environment. Adoption of water reuse in industry and businesses. What kind of public and private partnerships can you make? Because these industries are not only clients, they're also hosts of your local wastewater treatment plants in the decentralized approach that I described. And of course, in general, the funding for water reuse. Next, please. So, as I said, we focus on decentralized, innovative approaches and conservation. Also, we look at aquifer enrichment, so there is a lot of innovation there that we look into. Increasing green spaces in the city. We need to couple water reuse as a design of water engineers with urban developers, how we can imagine the city greener and with less temperature, mitigation of urban heat, and of course, natural-based solutions as part of the solution. Next, please. think that's all. And here is a small group of who is involved in this Attica Water Lab from all these different communities. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, George. Thank you very much. Now that we have had this overview of the four oriented living, the four WOLLs in this session, I will hand over to Andrea for the panel discussion.
Thank you so much once again. There's been quite an impressive presentation by 4 different water-oriented living labs, which also provide the opportunity of having really different scenarios across Europe, across socio-economical and purposes diversity, which is quite important. And I mean, this is also useful to remind here, because these 4 water-oriented living labs, I mean, are water-oriented labs connected to the network of the water-oriented living labs, which also strengthens the matter of this diversity, because can bring, I mean, different experience, I mean, to the network and to the community as well. Now, we start with this panel discussion, which also will be based, I mean, on the presentation that has been offered before. But at the same time, I also need to reconnect the purpose of this webinar to the matter that we are living a climate change era in which the impact on water and water-related sectors is extremely high, and actions cannot be postponed no longer. At the same time, we all know and agree on the matter that we need to work at the local level to address water challenges. But there are a number of questions, a number of additional challenges that we should consider. And I have a question for all of you. And the first question is about the matter that, speaking about, I mean, the capacity of water-oriented living lab of putting around the same table different actors and different stakeholders. And when we look this, I mean, from the point of view of climate change and climate adaptation, how can water-oriented living labs can strengthen the stakeholder alignment and what is much more important, the cross-sector collaboration in climate adaptation processes? I mean, this could be referred, I mean, the question is about your direct experience or what you wish that should be done in order to, really, I mean, to strengthen this capacity of the stakeholders to align on a cross-sector collaboration. Who wants to respond first? May I ask? Inge, do you want me to start?
There are some raised hands.
Yeah,
Okay.
I put my
Yes,
manual hand.
Okay, let's start with George then.
Yes, I think what we really have experienced as a real added value, let's say, is the process. It takes some time, but the process that everybody steps a bit away from defending their own priorities. Because when you work together, you have people from, for instance, agriculture. So you put farmers together with the people dealing with the community, so with the local politicians, with the people defending the right for nature. So they're really looking at really how can we make sure that we have the biodiversity, and then you have then the economic, of course, the industry that wants to go and create some economic activity in the region. And then you need to put all those visions together. And when you put them together at first, everybody starts with, I need to make sure that my agenda is being dealt with, that my priorities are being dealt with in a good manner. And really by putting them together and creating, let's say, it needs to be facilitated by really experienced people that can manage those kind of communities. And then you really need the other people to understand why another stakeholder is really pushing for other items than they do. And then only when you reach that process, they start a bit understanding, yes, okay, I need to let go of this priority because this cannot be merged with that other priority. And that process is really important. If you look at the speed that it goes, because we had some examples on water for agriculture and so on, but like the examples that I gave really put together, people working with the nature, the farmers, the industries, and so on, which is a really diverse community, and they need to be able to talk to each other. That is a really tedious, time-consuming process, which is ideally managed by kind of living lab format.
Many thanks. Thank you, Inga. I think that the second hand was the one of George.
Yes, thank you. One very important thing with climate adaptation, as well as mitigation, is that we don't have time. And I believe that water-oriented living labs expedite the process of design and implementation of infrastructure. Because everybody can do design on their own, but the question is, when will this design be implemented, who will fund it, and how will the rest stakeholders involved or impacted by this design, how will they take it and how will it work? Also, what kind of regulatory changes might this design need? How soon will these regulatory changes exist? Also, how soon will you receive funding for this design? All these questions, especially in public works, at least in my country and I'm sure in others, take a lot of time to be answered. And usually the phase between the design and the implementation of needed infrastructure for either climate adaptation or mitigation in public works takes a long time. I believe that participatory processes in design and implementation, processes that necessitate that all stakeholders sign on the same vision, actually will expedite the final implementation of what's needed to happen. And I believe that this is the most important thing with water-oriented living labs when it regards to climate adaptation and mitigation, because we don't have time.
Thank you, George. Very interesting point. I mean, let's learn from Maria Joao Rosa now.
Good morning, everyone. An aircraft is passing over my office, so might be some noise. And before providing some examples of how we are addressing those things in our living lab, perhaps let me congratulate Water Europe for getting such a nice group of WOLLs and for pushing this discussion. We can only move forward sharing and learning from each other. And actually, these four WOLLs share many of the climate-driven challenges, stormwater management, increased irrigation needs for urban life, quality, water scarcity, so many. The solutions, improve water efficiency, water reuse, nature-based solutions, and difficulties, the co-creation process, the governance approach, and model and the funding. From my perspective, we can boost the impact on climate adaptation of a WOLL, I would say, with three lessons or with three instruments: having a strategy, a strategic plan or a strategic agenda agreed upon the wide or the four helix members of the WOLL. In our case, to directly involve the government and the regulation entities, not as partners because they want to keep apart from that, but in our advisory council, and having a strong community of practice. And for instance, our advisory, and they all are very aware of the strategic agenda, and they kind of share and are involved in and are fully aware of the real needs that we have. In terms of advisory board, for instance, we have now three institutions: the Climate Agency, which is the agency from our Portuguese Minister for Environment and Climate Action. We have the Environmental Protection Agency and the Water Services Regulator, which needs to approve the tariffs. So kind of we are working with them so to move forward in all these challenges. And the community of practice, We do have replicators, because climate adaptation only is effective if we can upscale the actions, not in a small territory. We need to go broader. So we have replicators, we have industry and technology providers which are fully aware of the market needs, so to be better, and society, because citizens and people need to be involved, and that's how we have been addressing this for the last 6 years. And I have a question whenever it's time to Victoria, but I'm not sure if now is the right moment to.
Well,
We can save the sorry.
Thank you so much, Marie-Jo. So sorry, Ernest. But you can keep the question, because there will be a part in which we'll be happy, to host, a question between the panelists. But if you want to express it now, please feel free to do that.
It was just because one of the, for instance, in Lisbon, the one of the highest or the strongest challenges is exactly the amount of water the increasing amount of water we need for urban irrigation. Because we driven by climate change, the irrigation needs are increasing, and we also need more green areas. And my question is to Victoria, it's exactly the same for you in agriculture. So the irrigation needs, the specific irrigation needs for cultures, are they improving a lot or not that much for maize or for other cultures, for grass? Because here our estimates the water for non-potable urban irrigation will more than triple in the next 10 years. So.
Okay, thank you. I really like this question. So it's a very question matter for agronomists. So thank you. Okay, so we have different problems that we have to face. The first is that farmers are always fearing when they have to manage their crops. So during summer, for example, today we have 35 degrees here in Padova. So something that it's unbelievable if you see the long trends in the last 20, 30 years. So the farmers are moved by fear. And so what they do is that they just spray water because they fear that there would be some problem related in rooting, because basically we are in the emergence phase of summer crops like maize or soybean. So basically what happens in many cases is that the farmers are using water moved by the fear of losing production. And in many cases, we have a misuse of water because they use more water than it is needed. So our work was really hard because we need to create really big contact and trust with them and try to compare fields managed by their business as usual with fields that were managed with our application, to see in many cases that when they were feeling to intervene with watering, it was really not required, and the field that were managed with application did not experience any yield loss. So this is a really long process that has to be built on trust in our cases, but also on very good instrument. So we could do this because thanks to very big fundings that the National Recovery Plan could provide us, we equipped all the farms that were involved in Wiri with a weather station, so we could calibrate really the needings of each farm with the local weather station. And so we had a really precise irrigation method, but also we were able to rearrange and re-estimate the crop coefficient for soybean and maize in order to have a very calibrate irrigation. And in this way, you can, in a certain sense, contribute to reduce a good amount of water in the end of summer. Another activities that we are doing, and I have not presented because there was not enough time, but it could be really important for reducing the use of irrigation water, is intervening on soil. We have worked along in one of the living lab belonging to WIRI on implementing the content of soil organic matter in soil, because throughout this implementation, for example, intervening with addition of compost or digestate in soil, we are able to contribute to create a more structured soil, which is able to hold more water. And this is a very long-lasting activity because, you know, in soil, you cannot see results in 1 year, but it's something that if it is created and built up could really contribute to reduce water use in summer, which is the most critical point of the year. I hope I answered to your question.
Many thanks, Victoria. And Maria Joao, any comments? Was it a good answer to your question?
Yeah, very nice. But if you had to put a number on this, would you say that the irrigation needs could increase by, I don't know, 20%, 30%?
No, we should
twice the value?
I won't think that the weather condition will become worse. So in the actual condition, so if we keep this climatic condition, I think that if we implement all these strategies in terms of amelioration of
No, I know, Victoria, but once you have as a baseline the water efficiency, because now you have a huge potential to improve, because there are water is not used efficiently. But once you have water efficiency, I don't know, in 2040 or something, and then when you go on a longer term planning, in the next 10 years or so, would you think the irrigation needs regarding, associated with the climate scenarios will increase still, right?
No, I think that we could be able to manage with the water that we have.
Okay, great. Yeah. Because I don't believe we can. And are the farmers fun now or receptive to water reuse? No.
To water reuse, you mean?
Yeah. To irrigate with reclaimed water.
We have not started yet. What we are trying to do, and it's the youngest living lab that we have, and now we have just had some fundings to push more effort on it, is to work with the brackish waters. So it's a sort of wastewater or not really primary water use. We are starting to see how to valorize in the lagoon of Venice brackish water for irrigation purpose, because especially for the farms that are pretty close to the coast, we have problem like that. And so the quality of water is not adapt for some crops, and we are trying to identify the trade-off between the quality of this water and the kind of crops that we can use. And the experiment will today they are signing the agreement for the project, so we are starting working soon on this.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I think that now we might go to another question, which is once again looking into the capacity of water-oriented living labs to influence climate adaptation strategies. And here, I mean, the question goes, to all of you once again, of course. And looking at barriers. I mean, you already highlighted some of the barriers during the presentation, also through the discussions that followed. But at the same time, I mean, let's focus, I mean, on three main axes, I mean, of potential barriers, which are governance, financial, and institutional barriers. How can, if existent, I mean, if you see that one or more of them are running and maybe future barriers for limiting, I mean, the long-term integration of water-entity labs into the larger European climate adaptation strategies and with the local impact. So how do you see, I mean, the governance, the financial or institutional potential barriers affecting the long-term capacity of water-entity living labs? Of course, in the climate adaptation strategies. This might include also, I mean, political barriers or policy barriers that you might see, and financial barriers as well. Maria João, please.
I do not wish to monopolize the discussion, but yeah, you are right. Now, more than technology and science barriers, we have these kind of governance, financial and institutional barriers and political barriers, and they all come together, and they have a huge overlap. For instance, again, one of the solutions that we are pushing is water reuse. And to do so, now I think that one of the biggest bottleneck is exactly the establishment of a reclaimed water supply service, like we have drinking water supply and like we have wastewater management service. In order to get the best of the use of the network, and so to keep the costs lower, we need to go for a service in my perspective, and that involves barriers in all of these aspects, because the governance, we need to find who will be the operator of such service, who will be the regulator, probably ERSAD as well. The financial, the same, so to keep the costs lower, and not to rely so much on incentives, but rather on tariffs. Because the other thing is that the European policy, it's very demanding, because we have so many principles to fulfill, like the polluter pays. So in Portugal, the policy is not very much prone to incentives for water reuse, meaning get the state paying for the big investments. No, everything needs to be paid by the user of the reclaimed water, and that brings some challenges. So yes, I think now we are addressing all these, but again, within a wall, I think it's the better or the best environment for addressing these challenges in terms of policy, institutions, governance, and finance. Yeah.
Thank you, Maria João. I see that there is another hand raised by George.
Yes, hello. One challenge of water-oriented living labs is that it's often the case that they are not an entity. They are a network, they are a group, they're a working group, they're a water lab, which means that they cannot apply for funding as an entity. This can be a challenge, but it can also be a way to think innovatively about how to make water-oriented living labs flourish. Because you can rely on the different partners and what they can bring in terms of financing and institutional support to the water-oriented living labs. So that's one. The second thing is that water-oriented living labs, I believe that they are accelerators. And by that definition, they cannot rely on long horizon projects. They can use horizon projects for sure, but this cannot be their only way of for their existence and financial support. I was extremely thrilled by all the work that Water Europe has done in order to include water-oriented living labs in the Water Resilience Investment Accelerator scheme. I think this is a very smart move. And here in Greece, we also try to fund the Attica Water Lab and what they do with water reuse through the Sustainable Water Accelerator grant, which is a new instrument of the EIB. So what we now notice is that the European Union, experiments with and has included some new instruments for funding, and this is water-oriented living labs have an innovative way of working and process, and I think they can very well fit in these new models that the European Union is now launching to support water resilience. What for me though is critical is to make sure that whatever model we use for institutional and financial and governance support of the water-oriented living labs, we make sure that we allow for the water-oriented living labs to act fast. Because I surely believe that they're an instrument for speed, which is absolutely necessary in inclusive and let's call it holistic approaches when it comes to the solutions we need. Last, to say that the very fact that they can be a network of collaborations allows for public-private partnerships that can also be a way to support the water-oriented living labs. This is to be examined in Greece within the Attica Water Lab. I have nothing to say about this, but it is definitely a way that we are looking towards in order to make our Attica Water Lab sustainable.
Many thanks, George. You also mentioned something important about, the driver that should support and foster water, addressing water challenges in Europe, which is the water resilience strategy. And the water resilience strategy also includes mechanism to be, of course, defined in the implementation modality about also fostering investment in the water sector, which is particularly important because I feel, which is, of course, it is important to work on research, innovation, technology development, and source of funding. Of course, supports the achievement of new technologies, the achievement of new systems, but we also need to plan, to organize, and to make the water sector more attractive for investment, for investors, which might not be necessarily only public investors. So finding the way to support the blending for investment in the water sector, it is extremely important. And this is part also of the water resilience strategy. And at large, of course, this is it's an overall consideration about the matter that water-oriented labs can provide also new models for investment to address the water challenges. And this is not only concerns the high costs that are usually associated to the infrastructure, but also to the important and essential and crucial transition of the digitalization of the water sector, which is much more needed than ever. I don't know if there is any other comments on this. I see Sorry, I see also a question. Anis, you told me there is a question from the audience, right?
Yes, I see that Theodora has raised her hand. And also I see in the chat that George, you asked a question. What kind of data does your model use for calculating the water balance? Did your question was referred to the presentation of Vittoria?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So maybe we can answer that question and then we can give the floor to Theodora because I see that her hand is raised since a while.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not really the right person because now I'm presenting the work of a group of people. So we can basically exchange our contact, and I can make you in contact with the person in charge of this because he was managing a group of 5-6 people doing this. So it was a quite long job and not really easy to manage. So I will be very happy to create this context exchange.
Thank you. Does Theodora wish to raise the question, please? Otherwise, I mean, in the meanwhile, we have another question coming from Philippe Lacron. And the question is about the position of water rental living labs. I think this is addressed to all the water rental living labs, to all the panelists. As compared to existing entities in charge of the implementation of the Water Framework Directive at the sub-basin level. Philippe says also that in France, these entities are already established, policy-oriented, multi-actor, and often mandated for the formulation of climate adaptation strategy of the water sector. In our water and living labs, our approach is to focus on strengthening a missing link between academic research and the other stakeholders, policymakers, the private sector, and so on these issues. I wonder how other water and living labs deal with this issue of positioning in the already complex institutional landscape of the water management, including climate change adaptation. Quite a tough question. Inge.
Yeah, maybe just a comment from a practical point of view. We had several meetings and discussions because also as Vito, we are quite active in the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. So, but those are, let's say, specific entities that deal with water quality, the engagement, and so on. But if you are part of the discussions, to give an example, we had the discussion facilitated by the governor of the province of Antwerp, with people from the Flemish Environment Agency around the table, those who are dealing with the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. And then you had all other stakeholders, and then you also had the activities of all economic activities, for instance, along the Albert Canal, the water production, and so on. And although the Water Framework Directive implementation is directed really towards regional implementation, there still is a very big gap with the people dealing with implementation of the Water Framework Directive and the people doing actual activities in that area. So you need to bring those together to really come, let's say, to the next level there. And you need both, so it's not that one is against the other, but the people dealing with implementation of the Water Framework Directive, they have been doing this job for years and years and years, because it's a very long, tedious process with a lot of discussion there. And to give one example, which is currently very, very hot item in Flanders, the complexity of when there is a certain problem, for instance, kind of contaminant, like we have now in Flanders, the triazoles linked to the whole combination there, to engage in that discussion. You see that really we are very much consolidated as a kind of living lab stakeholder involvement to facilitate the discussion between the legislature, the implementation of the Water Framework Directive, and the local people, like, for instance, the people involved in the port areas, the example from the business parks, the provinces, to really engage that discussion. I think that is really important to take that up to the next level.
Many thanks, Inge. So it seems that this question is raising several hands, and then I pass the floor to Rita.
Hi. So I think the advantage of the water-oriented living labs is that in the water-oriented living labs, we have a space for testing and demonstration some solutions. And with the different stakeholders and with the co-creation tools. So I think the learnings for these experimentations and these solutions can give some insights for the policy makers and for the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. I think is the great advantages.
Thank you, Rita. George, your view?
I agree with whatever was said. Exactly, these water-oriented living labs and ours as well is creating the missing link between all these stakeholders. But I think there is a crucial point here. I think the water-oriented living labs should have a very specific result, and they should also be the instrument for infrastructure design and planning and implementation. Because this will show that the challenges of our times and that the investments, water-related investments of our times, need a participatory approach and good communication between all stakeholders. So it's not only about discussion or experimentation, it's about actually going for more efficient planning, design, and implementation of infrastructure that is absolutely needed in the water business. So my contribution, our contribution with the Attica Water Living Lab is mainly to prove this point. Water-oriented living labs can be the glue for the missing link between all stakeholders, not only for discussion, not only for experimentation and innovation, but specifically for creating a more integrated planning and implementation of the infrastructures imminently needed. And this links to what Andrea said, that I think it's a good idea to link water-oriented living labs with infrastructure funding.
Thank you, George. There is another hand of, I don't know if Rita, maybe an old hand. But then I think there's a new one from Maria Joao.
Yes, Andrea, just very fast. Yes, Philippe, I do think so regional water management boards are official boards. They take decisions, whereas the WOLLs are volunteer platforms for innovation. In short, for doing better and faster. So, and this difference is for the good and for the bad, meaning that they do complement one another. The WOLLs showcase solutions and support better decisions from the regional water management boards. At least this is how we are trying to take the best of the two models here in Portugal.
Thank you so much, Maria. We are getting close to the end of this panel discussion, and I would like to ask you one very quick question, very quick answer from your side to each of you. The question, I mean, it sounds easy, but I think it's not, because we should take into account that we are speaking about climate change and the need for climate adaptation. But at the same time, I think that everybody recognizes the matter that we live in an era of climate uncertainty. Because, I mean, to be frank, I think that nobody knows what might happen in the next 20 years, or even less. We get used, I mean, to a threshold of events that becomes higher and higher every year, that moves from one place to another one. But at the same time, I mean, creates a situation of uncertainty. Now, being very practical, because on the one hand, I mean, we have the uncertainty, on the other hand, we need also to act in order to having the water and the water sector able to become resilient and being able to work in order to mitigate the impact of climate change and to adapt to the changes as well. So really, in a nutshell, thinking about your work, your water-oriented living lab, what your water-oriented living lab can do really in a nutshell in terms of territorial resilience and preparedness in the context of this increasing climate uncertainty. Really, in a nutshell, what your work can do, or can forecast or can plan to do. The first one is Vittoria.
Okay, we are already working in this direction, and as our main focus is crops and production, what we are trying to do is to build future climatic scenario that we create mathematically, and we try to project what are the needings and what are the necessity of our crops in these future climatic scenarios. In this way, we are able to calculate what could be the needings of the crop, and we are already starting to study some adaptation strategies. For example, just to give you an idea, we are starting to study new sowing dates for crops that have been always sowed in a determined period, but now we are already starting the hypothesis of anticipating the sowing date, because in this way we can contribute to skip some drought, very, very prolonged drought stress, and maybe we can still keep the yield. So we are working in this way, projecting in this climatic scenario, what are the different scenarios that we can have in the future, and we are already starting to test this today in order to collect already data that can help us to be something like 10 years in advance to the climatic change.
Thank you, Vittoria. Rita.
Yes, in Aguamay Living Lab, we are working, for example, on water reuse. And in the scope of water reuse, we are doing the matchmaking with the needs and the production, but not just for nowadays. We are projecting the future needs in terms of the territory. So other thing that we already developed was a solution for direct potable reuse, for example, for beer production. So we are anticipating some challenges that can be the future challenges, water scarcity. So we are working for preparedness for these kind of challenges.
Many thanks, Rita. Third contribution by George Sakinis.
Thank you. As I said, we collaboratively design and we hopefully implement the water use system in Attica. Now, uncertainty is definitely an issue, because if it starts raining, for example, next year, everybody will think, forget the water use system.
Forget it.
Now we're all right. This is exactly what will happen. Or if things go bad with quality, even more with water, then questions arise about water reuse. These questions are very complex. So you need to be in a community that has signed the same vision of pushing forward water reuse in the most resilient, sustainable, and of course, safe way. If that would mean more investment, more innovation, more drive, then at least the water-oriented living lab has created a community that will go and for the extra mile. So it's not only about co-designing a plan and making sure that it's making sure you're inclusive. It is also about making some sort of a commitment, creating a commitment and an ownership to a vision that in these uncertain years to come, might create more issues that will need to be solved by a strong community. This is exactly what the water-oriented living labs offer.
Thank you, George. And the last word, from this panel discussion, it is from Inga. Sorry, you're muted.
Sorry, yeah. Just on top of what already has been mentioned, I think it's also the job of a living lab to really question certain items. So really focusing also on the system. So looking at, okay, if individual measures are coinciding, are they heading towards the correct target? Also to be able not just to, let's say, strengthen what everybody wants to do, but also be the one that really raises questions and addresses inconsistencies in the system. Because if everybody looks from their own perspective, those are the items that you really miss. And I think that's a really important one. So really the connecting the dots and not just trying to, let's say, accelerate what all individuals are trying to do, but also be the ones that says, okay, make a little kind of a standstill. Do you realize that this measure is connected to, and for instance, connecting the farmers with the Water Framework Directive people, with the government and so on. So that I think is really important. So we should be aware of that be a bit the guidance of the total system. And that is a bit translated into what George was saying in a kind of a plan. But then the question is, what is a plan? You have, for instance, the drinking water provision plan, you have the industry water provision plan. So all these things, where should we make the combination and be a kind of alert saying, okay, this needs to be connected now and not looking at all the individual improvements.
Thank you so much, Inga. I think that was an important final, of this of this panel in the perspective of achieving a water smart economy and society, collaboration, and finding the way, to fill the gaps and having the dots being connected. It is extremely important. And water and living labs, are based on collaboration, a deep collaboration, deep in the roots of the territories. Now, since this quite interesting panel it's over, we pass also to a different perspective on water and climate. I would say nexus somehow, even though it's not really nexus, but at the same time, how do we go and where we go in terms of structuring the impact and what could be the next steps in terms of working on supporting the local and regional climate adaptation strategies. Now, it is the time for one of our expert group of Water Europe, which is the expert group of water and climate. As you know, Water Europe has 15 expert groups working in different areas of the water and water-related sectors, all working in order to contribute to achieving a water smart society and economy according to the vision of Water Europe. Now, this session, it is also a session which is the expert group that explores how the Water and Lab can support climate adaptation at territorial level. So it is with big pleasure that I call on stage, or I pass the floor to Vanessa Ramos, which is the leader of the expert groups on water and climate, and Maria Joao Rosa, which is the special advisor, the mentor of the expert group. The floor is yours, and we are almost on time. We are 4 minutes delayed, but I think this can be easily recorded. So you're welcome to present your contribution. Thank you so much.
So, good morning, everyone, and thank you to Water Europe for the invitation. My name is Vanessa Ramos, and today, together with Maria João Rosa, we will explore the role that water-oriented living labs can play in supporting climate resilience and long-term adaptation planning across Europe. In particular, we will reflect on how WOLLs can move beyond real-world experimentation and contribute to a structured adaptation processes. This work is being developed within the Water and Climate Expert Group, which is one of the expert groups of Water Europe, as Andrea was saying. Our group brings together experts from different countries and backgrounds, working on several areas, namely climate science, climate adaptation, hydrology, urban water management, and sustainability. Climate-related impacts are intensifying across Europe. We are increasingly facing droughts, floods, and heat waves. According to the European State of the Climate Report of 2025, Europe experienced several extreme climate events throughout the year, affecting territories from the Mediterranean to Northern Europe. And 2026 has not started any better. In Portugal, for example, we experienced in January what was considered the strongest windstorm ever recorded, followed by periods of intense rainfall and flooding. These pressures are no longer isolated events. They are becoming structural challenges affecting cities, territories, and water systems across Europe. This creates an urgent need for long-term adaptation strategies. Also, according with this report, Europe is currently the fastest warming continent. In fact, almost all Europe experienced above average temperatures in 2025. Climate pressures are increasing both in frequency and complexity, and adaptation decisions are becoming increasing investment heavy and long-term. In this context, WOLLs become particularly relevant. Today, WOLLs are spread across Europe, from north to south and from east to west, operating in territories exposed to very different climate pressures and adaptation challenges. These territories face very different realities, as was explained before for some of them. Therefore, WOLLs provide an environment where adaptation can be explored directly in real territorial context. But WOLLs are much more than testing environments. They are collaborative ecosystems capable of transforming local experimentation into actionable adaptation knowledge. First, WOLLs support real-world experimentation under actual climate pressures. Second, they bring together utilities, authorities, researchers, citizens, and innovators around shared adaptation challenges. Third, they generate data, tools, and decision support environments that help inform better adaptation decisions. And finally, they create continuity, trust, and shared learning, which are essential for long-term resilience. In this sense, WOLLs can become key instruments to turn local knowledge into long-term adaptation. To better understand how climate resilience is being addressed in the water sector, the Water and Climate Expert Group developed a survey focused on climate resilience. The survey primarily targets water utilities. However, it is also highly relevant for WOLLs, particularly those that are closely linked to or include a water utility. This is why we decide to involve WOLLs in this first stage. The survey seeks to collect insights on how utilities are preparing for, responding to, and adapting to the growing impacts of climate change. More specifically, it aims to identify challenges and gaps, understand resilience maturity levels, highlight good practices and innovation, and support evidence-based recommendations. This work is also the first step towards a broader report that we are developing, the report on the state of climate resilience, co-created with input from participating organizations. We will now present the first results of the survey, starting with the general information. We receive responses from 6 WOLLs with different geographical context and governance models. Thank you to them. Moving to climate risks and impacts, the responses show that WOLLs are exposed to multiple climate-related pressures. The main risks identified include droughts and water scarcity, and floods and intense rainfall. The next section of the survey focuses on governance, strategy, and planning. One important point is whether climate risk and vulnerability assessments have already been carried out. This is a key starting point for adaptation because utilities and WOLLs need to understand their exposure and vulnerabilities before defining priorities. Another important aspect is how regularly climate risks are assessed or reviewed. This is very relevant because adaptation is becoming increasingly investment heavy and long-term. So moving from project-based responses to structured planning is therefore essential. We also look at how climate adaptation and mitigation are being integrated into governance and planning processes. The results suggest that climate considerations are increasingly present, but the level of integration still vary between organizations. Finally, we also explore the existence of formal adaptation and mitigation plans, as well as the share of investments dedicated to climate adaptation and resilience. The fourth section focuses on concrete measures and implementation. The responses show that WOLLs are already linked to a broad range of adaptation and resilience measures. Sorry, I think yes. To a broad range of adaptation and resilience measures. These include nature-based solutions, water reuse, flood management, infrastructure reinforcement, monitoring, and alert systems, as well as drought and contingency planning. We also explored the stage of implementation of these measures and the main drivers behind adaptation action. These slides focus on the role of digital and smart water technologies in climate adaptation. The survey explored whether tools such as sensors, monitoring systems, data analytics, digital twins, or decision support systems are already being used. These technologies are very important because they can help anticipate risks, support operational decisions, and improve adaptation planning. The section 5 focuses on collaboration and capacity building. This is particularly relevant for WOLLs, as talked before, because collaboration is at the core of the living lab approach. The survey looked at collaboration with municipalities, academia, industry, and other stakeholders, as well as participation in European or national initiatives on climate adaptation. The result shows that WOLLs can play an important role in connecting actors and creating sharing environments. The survey also explored the participation in European and national initiatives related to climate adaptations. The results show that many WOLLs are already actively involved in projects. It is important to highlight that WOLLs go far beyond a simple sum of EU-funded projects. In fact, the EU funding is crucial, particularly at early stage, but long-term impact depends on continuity and on maintaining a coherent strategic agenda for the territory. The section 6 focus on monitoring, evaluation, and performance. This includes whether climate adaptation and resilience indicators are being monitored or reported within WOLL-related activities and organizations. Monitoring is essential because it helps understand whether adaptation measures are effective and whether resilience is improving over time. It also supports more informed and evidence-based decision-making. We also explore the types of indicators and tools currently being used to evaluate climate resilience performance. This is particularly important topic because knowing what to measure is also essential for WOLLs. Without clear indicators and evaluation frameworks, it becomes difficult to assess progress, compare experiences, or support long-term adaptation planning. Finally, the final section of the webinar focus on of the survey focus on future perspectives and priority needs for strengthening climate resilience. The survey explores aspects such as access to funding, policy, and regulatory clarity, digitalization, technical guidance, and knowledge exchange. The results show that adaptation requires not only technical solutions, but also enabling conditions that support long-term implementation and collaboration. Another important point is the interest of the WOLLs in contributing to a shared European repository of practices and experience, reinforcing the importance of collective learning across WOLLs. So the next steps, based on this first phase of the survey, will focus on expanding participation and strengthening the evidence base on climate resilience across WOLLs. We aim to involve additional WOLLs and water utilities in order to consolidate results, identify common challenges and good practices, and continue supporting knowledge exchange. The work, as I already mentioned, will contribute to the report on the state of climate resilience. So now I would like to invite you to stay connected with the next activities of our expert group. In the coming months, we will continue organizing 4 webinars focusing on climate adaptation topics such as floods, droughts, governance, and digitalization. And finally, we will also like to highlight upcoming Water for All activities, namely the 2 one-year capacity development programs for WOLLs planned for 2027 and 2028. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, and thanks a lot for the work that you're carrying out within the expert group alongside with Maria Joao. I will now give the floor for our last presentation of today to Beatrice Barresi. I see that there's a question from George. Maybe we can take it before moving to the last presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for this great presentation, Ms. Ramos. My question is, how much value do you put in the potential use of water-oriented living labs for integrated investment planning and infrastructure development? I didn't see this mentioned at all, I think, in the presentation. Perhaps I missed something. And one other remark is that I also find value in water-oriented living labs on the fact that as a process, they are innovative themselves. In my opinion, they do not really need to include innovative technologies within them. This is just a general remark, because they are an example of process innovation. Just as a remark. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for the questions. In fact, WOLLs are very good in terms of innovation, or as you mentioned. But we think that in terms of climate adaptation, climate planning, and evaluation of climate risk, we can making maybe a little bit more of predictions, or trying to, because sometimes we state to the, for example, when you are looking to a water utility, you have like the innovation that you bring from the universities or from the labs that we work with them. So, but when we try to project, for example, trying to prepare for the future, for the predicted climate change scenarios, we don't have this medium or long term. Sometimes we can improve this vision, let's say.
I may add something to George. You're right. The money is all. It seems like everything ends up in money or in financial limitations, but I do. To be honest, I don't think WOLLs will get a kind of a special status to get money. The thing is that we will be better prepared to apply, to soundly apply for the money where it is. And even not only for the money, for the investments, but everything, and even to build a fair water pricing, to get people involved and willing to pay. So we will, I believe WOLLs will be facilitators, but not and indirectly, they will be kind of a catalyzers for funding for climate adaptation, but I think they will not be having a kind of a special status to get the money. If that is what you were trying to
No,
question us.
No, I don't think that. I never mentioned that WOLLs are a way to make money. I just said that what.
No, to get the money to put the things. No.
I think that what is missing in the presentation, I didn't see it, is that they are a tool for integrated investment planning and for integrated infrastructure development. This is all I said. I don't think they are a means for getting funding, but I didn't see the connection to the infrastructure, integrated infrastructure planning and development, and I think it's an important one. At least our contribution in the water-oriented living labs atlas is exactly that, and this is why I think it can be mentioned.
Thank you very much, George. We will add this and taking your comment in consideration. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I don't know if somebody else wants to add some more. Otherwise, I can give the floor to Beatrice Barresi, ESA representative, that she will introduce us the ESA Bus program and the funding opportunities that exist within it and can be interesting for WOLLs. Beatrice, the floor is yours. If you have any technical issues, I can share the screen for you, Beatrice. I already have your presentation, so. seems that she's having some issues because I see her among the participants, but she's not reacting. So I don't know if she's having troubles.
Anaïs, in the meantime, can we, George, coming back again to your question, meaning the survey was meant to be answered by water utilities. This was kind of a last minute adaptation to ask WOLLs to answer it. That's a kind of a tricky. I think Vanessa said it clearly, but yes, we will. Now what we are trying to do is to kind of develop two models of the survey, one more per entity, meaning per water utility, and the other more applicable to a water-oriented living lab. And then the questions like can be further fine-tuned, so to say.
Yeah,
So if the people in the session would like to contribute, perhaps we can, Vanessa, we can put on the chat the link for the survey, or
Yes.
then to send it. I know that Anaïs is doing her best to disseminate and to engage with the respondents.
Yeah, but you can we can always chase them more. It's never enough. So
Yeah.
if you want to share it on the chat, please feel free to do it, and I can send also a reminder on the through emails. Okay, I don't see Beatrice anymore connected, so I guess that she's having some last minute issues. Oh, wait, maybe we can. Sorry for the waiting. We are just because I know her presentation was very interesting, and we are just checking if she has a problem with her link. So we will try to solve the issue, and then if not, we will go to the conclusion.
It's an irony that the space agency is having trouble with these digital things. And I do agree that ESA can be a kind of a strong player in
Yeah,
this
exactly. She wanted to.
data-driven approach and
Yeah,
the
and
digitalization of the water sector. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, and also the opening of the ESA call for funding. So it's something that is very interesting for WOLLs. So we are sending her a new link, so maybe she will be able to join us again. I see her now connected. Beatrice, can you hear us? I see that she disconnected again, so I think that the issue is still there. So maybe we can go to the conclusions, and if she join us later, we can give her the word.
Yeah, maybe move the presentation to a next webinar, because I think
Yeah,
so
we
some
can
time
be,
it will
yeah.
be not, if it's just fast and people need to move, then it would also be a less impact, I think.
Oh, Beatrice, you are here? I saw her for a while. No. Yes, we can find a way to we will share in any case the presentation afterwards, and then we can find a moment to during the next webinar for for going through the ISABAS call. So I would like to start first of all to thanking very much all the speakers and the participants. I think that we had really inspiring exchange sessions, especially during the panel discussion. Many things emerged today, many exchanges, and I thank you very much for your time and for your insights. I think that we all agree that there's no longer enough time to climate adaptation. I mean that the climate adaptation needs to be a process, needs to speed up clearly, and that WOLLs can offer a place where it can be effectively, the strategies can be really implemented and reinforced. We also explore the social dimension, the social side of climate adaptation through the example that the WIRI WOLLs brought, with the concrete examples of farmers that's driven by fear are maybe can intentional drive behaviors, adopt behavior that can worsen scarcity, using maybe more water than the needed. So climate adaptation, of course, needs technologies, infrastructures, but also perceptions and social aspect and behavioral change overall. I would like to briefly show you also the next appointment that we will be having to continue this whole webinar series. We will the idea is to have two other webinars. Sorry. One in July, and here you can see it. The next webinar will be on data interoperability and knowledge sharing across the WOLLs. We will having it in July 2026. We are still need to find the date and to set a more defined agenda, but here we will focus on how water-oriented living labs can better exchange knowledge, data, and experiences. And the second one will be on September 2026. And here we will talk about from pilots to scale, how replication integration into local strategies. You are also, of course, very much invited to join the two webinars. and to be part of them. We will, of course, share later on a more detailed agenda. And I kindly ask to the all WOLLs representative to reply to the survey that Vanessa has shared in the chat. It's very important to gather tangible data that can be used afterwards as well. And if there are no more questions, I thank you very much all once again, and apologies with Beatrice for not having had her presentation, but I am sure that we can find another moment, another occasion. So thank you all very, very much, and I hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.